A spokesman in Berlin said the Red Armies would be encircled and destroyed within 6 weeks. Its remnants would retreat back of the Urals. There the Japanese could deal with them at the proper time. Joseph Stalin rallied the Russian people. Soldiers and civilians responding with a unanimity that amazed a world that had heard much and knew little of them, rose to repel and harry the invaders.
There is a brewing conflict at the crossroads of Russia and Europe, Ukraine. As many as 130,000 Russian troops have gathered along the Ukrainian border. President Vladimir Putin appears to be making all the preparations for war, moving more military equipments, medical units, etc. to the front lines. Amid a possibility for this to turn out into an act of aggression that could spiral into the largest military conflict on the European soil in decades, the diplomatic talks between Russia and the United States and its allies have not yet yielded any solution. Reports suggest that Russia is in the advanced stages of planning an invasion of Ukraine. Why is there a sudden military escalation at the Russian border? It all started in 2013 when President Viktor Yanukovych was about to sign a political and economic deal with Europe, but instead signed a deal with Moscow. This made Ukrainians believe that the country is leaning towards Russia. Following this, thousands of Ukrainians protested and Yanukovych was ousted from power. The new president then signed the EU accord. In the next big move, President Putin sent military forces to the peninsula region, Crimea, and Crimea was controversially annexed by Russia. Russia didn't stop there. Russia is increasingly taking control of the Donbas region in the east. This is where the current conflict is brewing. Ukraine consists of two parts, an eastern region and a western region. Eastern Ukraine is historically and culturally more closely associated with Russia, whereas the rest of the country has its own culture and is more Ukrainian. Eastern Ukraine has always been a hotbed of rebellion groups and pro-Russians. In April 2014, pro-Russian separatists started taking territory, fanning a full-scale war with the Ukrainian military. Although Moscow has always denied it, the rebels allegedly receive support from Moscow, whereas the Ukrainian government is backed by NATO. NATO is the military alliance formed by the Western countries following World War II to fight the Soviet Union. NATO is expanding towards the east after the collapse of the Soviet Union, which, according to Russia, poses a threat to its security. On the 26th of March 2021, pro-Russian separatists killed 4 Ukrainian soldiers, ending a year of relative calm. The killings contravened a ceasefire agreement signed in 2020, after which thousands of soldiers were disbanded on the border. Since 2014, more than 14,000 civilians, 4,000 Ukrainian troops, and 6,000 pro-Russian separatists have been killed in this conflict. While the figures are just an estimation, the actual body counts are believed to be higher. To put an end to it, the Ukrainian government is pushing for NATO membership. In the next big move that came, in December 2021, Russia presented the US with a list of demands. Putin demanded NATO to stop its eastward expansion, deny membership to Ukraine, and roll back troop deployment in countries that had joined after 1997, which would turn back the clock decades on Europe's security and geopolitical alignment. As expected, the US and NATO rejected those demands. According to experts, Ukraine won't join NATO because Article 5 of the NATO treaty states that any attack on a NATO country is treated as an attack on the entire alliance, which means any Russian military engagement of a hypothetical NATO member, Ukraine, would theoretically bring Moscow into conflict with the US, UK, France, and the other 27 member countries of NATO. NATO treaty also states that no country can join the alliance without the unanimous buy-in of all 30 member countries and many have opposed Ukraine's membership. Ukraine became an informal member of NATO without a formal decision. The majority of the Ukrainian public support accession to Western organizations such as the EU and NATO. As a result, Russia may have felt that it has exhausted all its political and diplomatic tools to reintegrate Ukraine. This is one of the many theories as to why Putin believes that it is the right time to act. According to Putin, Ukrainians and Russians were one, and the forces from West have created a wall between the two. Even as the White House prepares sanctions against Russia and sends money and weapons to Ukraine, it is holding hopes for a diplomatic resolution. The people of Ukraine are scared. Their lives are at stake, and the schools are preparing their children for the worst to come. Kremlin insists it has no plans to invade Ukraine, but the build-up of Russian allied troops on the Ukrainian border is viewed as the biggest military build-up in Europe since World War II. And only time can tell what the fate of Ukraine is.